$20 billion was spent by Vegas to recover what was lost after a summer of dormancy. However, instead of setting a new record for tourist numbers, Las Vegas became emptier than ever. The house always wins. That used to be the mantra of this city. But this time, it seems the house itself lost big. Super projects once touted as miracles, from Elon Musk's tunnels and billion-dollar stadiums to towering skyscrapers promising to change the city's face, have now become symbols of failure. An entire $20 billion comeback plan went up in flames, leaving behind a series of unfinished projects, a mountain of debt, and casinos that were brightly lit but empty. The lights still shone brightly, but the soul of Vegas had dimmed. If even the city that never sleeps falls, can the American dream still awaken? In today's video, join us as we delve into the heart of the city once dubbed the American Dream Paradise, to see what truly happened to Vegas and why this time no one wants to return to this place anymore. Las Vegas bet big, over $20 billion on the promise of a booming comeback. But instead of a big win, that gamble backfired. In a short period, over 12% of visitors, equivalent to over 500,000 people, refused to pay $40 just to park for an hour or $20 for a weak cup of coffee here. The absence is even more brutal for international visitors. Canadian tourists alone, who account for over 20% of the market, have plummeted, wiping out $3.6 billion in revenue and threatening 43,000 jobs in the region. What caused America's party capital to become so empty? Let's try to turn back the time machine to find out where it all began. After the pandemic, the Las Vegas government and giant entertainment and real estate corporations harbored a bold ambition: to create a new Vegas, not just a gambling city, but a global symbol of luxury. In the period 2020-2025, a series of projects will be injected with capital, with an estimated total value of over $20 billion. The new vision is to transform Vegas into a modern luxury experience, where travel is intertwined with technology and world-class performances. Powerful names like MGM Resorts, Caesars Entertainment, and Sphere Entertainment Co. Let's lead the game together and lay the foundation for that dream. However, by 2025, Vegas no longer maintained the magical trajectory that was expected. The city is experiencing a severe slowdown. Tourist arrivals have plummeted, and hotel occupancy rates are only at 66–68%, lower than even the grim figures recorded during the pandemic. Why did a brilliantly painted comeback plan quickly run out of steam? The answer lies in the very projects that were once hailed as saviors. In the media, they appear as symbols of the future, but in reality, it's all just a painted facade. MSG Sphere, the $2.3 billion light sphere once touted as the future of entertainment, turned out to be just an empty ball. Revenue wasn't enough to cover operating costs, stock prices plummeted, and the audience dwindled after the initial few months of curiosity. Not only the Sphere, but Elon Musk's Vegas Loop also repeated a similar disappointing scenario. Once touted as a game-changing transportation solution for the city, the project promised to transport 90,000 people per hour. But the reality is just a few short tunnels where Teslas still need to be driven. Tourists are forced to queue in the scorching sun for 20 minutes for a ride that lasts a mere 90 seconds. The ambitions and illusions once celebrated by Vegas now remain only disappointment and massive debts. When mega projects start losing money, corporations should have accepted their losses. But instead, the burden was cleverly shifted onto the shoulders of the tourists themselves. From show tickets, meals, and parking fees to hotel service charges, everything is gradually escalating. Every time the project fails, Vegas tries to patch it up by adding a few dollars to each bill. By 2025, the average cost of a trip to Vegas has increased by 35 to 40% compared to 2019. What was once considered an affordable luxury vacation has now become a financial gamble that most middle-class families no longer dare to take. Las Vegas once sold visitors a promise of the future, that for just a few $100s, anyone could touch the world of glitz and glamour. But that promise has now turned into heavy bills. A Canadian tourist bitterly remarked, "Going to Vegas now is like mortgaging your future. Everything's too expensive for its actual value, and no one wants to come here right now." After all, the city burned over $20 billion to resell an old dream. But the truth is, no one wants to buy it anymore. And perhaps, as Las Vegas chases giant symbols in the desert sky, they have inadvertently lost the most important thing, the lifeblood and soul that once made this place truly captivating. If a city that was once a symbol of the American dream is now left with only bills and debt, what awaits the rest of this country? And if Vegas has lost its soul in the race for luxury, will America still have the strength to retain the soul that many generations believed in and sacrificed to build? The answer will be revealed in the reaction of the visitors in the next part. The wave of tourists leaving Las Vegas isn't because they've changed, but because the city has become too expensive, to the point where many people feel unwelcome. In October, winter had only just begun, but Vegas seemed to have been in hibernation since summer. In the press and on social media, shocking headlines appeared one after another. A $26 bottle of water at the Aria Hotel, unreasonable resort fees. People started asking each other, is Vegas still worth visiting? Perhaps it's not difficult to find the answer when you look out at the streets of Vegas right now. Just two words: completely empty. Caitlin and Max Lane, a couple from Scottsdale, Arizona, shared that they used to visit Vegas at least once a year. But this year was different. Their recent trip left them with the most forgettable memories.
For lunch, and we had, a club sandwich and a couple Diet Cokes. The Cokes were $4 a pop.
$4 for a can of Coke. Is Vegas putting magic into this? If not, then why is it so expensive? And this is not an isolated experience. Across forums and social media, thousands of tourists have spoken out, denouncing the unreasonable high prices that are rampant throughout the city. The true value of items in Vegas seems to be playing hide and seek with tourists. People pay, but they don't find a balance between the money spent and the experience they receive. This crack is most evident in the international visitor market. Canadian tourists, once one of Las Vegas's most important sources of visitors, are now gradually leaving. Not only because of rising service fees and prices, but also due to increasingly complex external factors. More complicated immigration policies, sharply increasing flight costs, the devaluation of the Canadian dollar, and international relations that are no longer as favorable as before. When the cost of a trip exceeds what people can afford, many simply don't return. Meanwhile, the model pursued by large corporations in Vegas only makes the gap even more pronounced. They gradually cut back on the budget customer segment to target wealthy clients, hoping that a smaller but more affluent group of guests would replace the crowds that once sustained the city. But reality proved the opposite. A few thousand VIP guests couldn't make up for the millions of middle-class and international tourists who turned away. The consequences are obvious. Many guests cancelled their reservations, forcing hotels to offer deep discounts or accept empty rooms. On travel forums and social media, the phrase "Vegas ripoff" is becoming increasingly widespread, with a flood of images and personal stories exposing the unreasonable high prices. The image of Las Vegas, once a paradise of joy and extravagance, is now associated with feelings of being cheated and disappointed. Perhaps there are still ways out. Some analysts suggest the city needs to be more transparent about fees, not hiding them in bills. All-inclusive travel packages can help tourists avoid price shock upon arrival. And if Las Vegas wants to retain international visitors, especially from Canada, reducing visa barriers, subsidizing flight costs, or offering special incentives is unavoidable. However, even with a solution, Tourists' emotions at this moment are still anger and disappointment. They used to consider Vegas a place that belonged to them, a city of memories and joy. But today, they left feeling abandoned, as if their presence was no longer valued. If Las Vegas continues to rely on a small group of wealthy visitors and neglects the vast majority of middle-class tourists, will the city still have a chance to regain trust? And if that doesn't change, perhaps the most heartbreaking thing will be when the very memory of an old Vegas also gradually fades away. There was a time when Las Vegas was called America's common man's dream. You don't need a lot of money. Anyone can step into the dazzling light, enjoy a cheap buffet, and feel like they're living in a moment of luxury. For many working-class families, Vegas used to be a place where they could escape the daily grind without sacrificing a year's worth of income. But today, looking back, it seems that party is over. People still talk about Vegas in the 70s and 80s with a nostalgic tone. Back then, hotels advertised $5 buffets as a way to attract customers. Musical performances were affordable for the whole family to attend. And even a taxi driver could tell you he drove dozens of passengers just so they could make it to the show in the evening. Vegas at that time was for everyone. Rich or poor, everyone could find a place for themselves. However, in the recent decade, that structure has changed. Reports analyzing the tourism industry indicate that the premiumization model, focusing on high-spending guests, is eroding the trust of the middle class. According to data from the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, the average hotel room rate on the Strip in 2024 remains over $74 per night, 27% higher than in 2019, even as the city faces a decline in visitors. This reflects a reality. Vegas keeps room rates high, but makes up for it by adding a host of extra fees. For budget travelers, that price point is gradually closing the doors of Vegas. This shift has greater significance than just a number. It's changing the city's identity. A Las Vegas that once prided itself on being the city for everyone is now becoming the city for the wealthy. The middle class, which makes up the majority of mass tourism, feels excluded from the party. And when the majority left, Vegas lost the very pillar that had fueled its boom. If it continues down this path, Las Vegas will not only lose customers, but also the soul that once made it a global attraction. But there's still a chance to change. Some analysts suggest that offering fixed-price packages with no hidden fees could help regain trust. Small, affordable shows specifically for families or retirees could partially restore the spirit of Vegas for everyone. Even large corporations like Caesars Entertainment and MGM Resorts are being urged to test transparent and all-in-one service models, rather than continuing to push hidden prices higher. Because ultimately, what makes Vegas special has never been just the neon lights or the billion-dollar buildings. It's the ability to turn an ordinary person into the star of the evening that is the true value. And when that value disappears, the party is no longer a party. If the party is finally over, who will be the first to clean up the mess? And will this city have the courage to admit that, to have a future, they must return to what once made Vegas belong to everyone? As Las Vegas bets on massive projects to regain its former glory, few would have thought that it would be the very people who make up the city's soul who would be the first to suffer losses. The neon lights still glow brightly, the billion-dollar billboards still shine, but right beneath them is a heartbreakingly contrasting scene. Makeshift tents, and people who once served tables, drove taxis, or dealt cards in casinos now have to sleep on the concrete desert. The Vegas dream for them had shattered. According to a report by the Las Vegas Review-Journal, in the first half of 2025, employment in the hospitality and entertainment sector decreased by over 8% compared to the same period last year. This number is not just dry statistics. It reflects the cracks in the lives of tens of thousands of families. A 55-year-old female dealer said that in the past she could split about $300 in tips with her colleagues during a single evening shift. But now, that amount has dropped to less than $60, even on weekends. Another cocktail server, aged 40, said she only gets scheduled a few times a week, not because of a lack of ability, but because the gaming tables are empty. With their incomes plummeting, many of them are having to choose between paying rent or buying daily food. Images of sparsely populated casinos also mean that the supporting machinery around them is stalled. Taxis have few customers, restaurants in hotels are forced to reduce their opening hours, and housekeeping staff have their working hours cut. These people not only lost their jobs, but also the sense of security that was once the core of the American dream. Because Vegas isn't just a place for entertainment, it used to be a stable source of income for the middle class, those who built families and educated their children with the wages they earned here. What can salvage this situation? The solution doesn't lie in another light installation or a billion-dollar project. It could start with governments and large corporations establishing emergency relief funds for service industry workers, similar to how some major cities did in the post-crisis period. Vocational retraining programs, such as transitioning employees from the casino industry to event management or sustainable tourism services, can help them find stable employment again. Some observers even called for major brands like MGM Resorts to pilot a profit-sharing model, so that when profits increase, workers also benefit, instead of only bearing the risk when a crisis hits. Who is the real winner and loser in this game? If the city continues to let the people who make Vegas what it is fade away, can it still be called a livable and memorable city? And when the neon lights are no longer enough to hide the darkness in the lives of working people, what's left of the dream Vegas once promised? Las Vegas has long been considered a laboratory for extravagant dreams. But the irony is that every time a dream shatters, this city doesn't stop to learn, but simply builds a new dream right on top of the old ashes. The neon lights change, the billboards are brighter, but behind them are still cracks that have never been mended. That recurring pattern can be summarized as a formula. A new project is announced with great promises, investors pour in money, there's a lot of advertising. Progress slows down, costs exceed estimates, and finally, the project either fails or is abandoned. When the first generation of projects failed, the next generation was born with the same promises, as if the memory of previous failures had never existed. This scene repeats itself throughout the desert valley, faded billboards promising a new paradise, hanging in front of a dusty, empty lot. What was once envisioned as the symbol of New Vegas has become a reminder that this city has never learned to stop and correct its mistakes. And when investor confidence, especially among small retail investors, is eroded, Vegas not only loses money, but also the patience and loyalty of those who once believed in it. According to data from Moody's Investors Service, credit risk in the Las Vegas hospitality and entertainment sector has been rated as higher than average since the end of 2024, reflecting growing skepticism from the financial community. This shows that the failed loops don't just stop at the image of abandonment, but also extend to the capital market, where it will be decided whether Vegas can continue to attract future cash flow. But there are still solutions if the city dares to face the truth head-on. Before starting a project, it's crucial to ensure that the funding and partners are truly committed, rather than just a promotional facade. Small-scale, transparent projects implemented in phases and with publicly reported progress can partially restore trust. Large corporations like Caesars Entertainment can lead the way by adopting open oversight mechanisms, allowing the community and residents to track the truth about budgets and progress, rather than letting failures repeat in silence. If Vegas keeps burning billions to create illusions and then watching them collapse, how many more chances will this city have to rise again? And when the memory of Great Vegas is just a shadow, who will still have enough faith to bet on a recycled dream? When Vegas collapsed, did anyone see in it a reflection of America today? This question is not just for one city, but for an entire nation that was once proud of its prosperity and opportunities. Vegas, with its dazzling neon lights and multi-billion-dollar projects, now reflects a harsh truth. Behind the slogans of the future lies a void of trust and the fracturing of the middle class. The numbers show this is not an isolated incident. According to the World Travel and Tourism Council, WTTC, spending by international tourists in the US could decrease by as much as $2.5 billion in 2025 if current trends continue. Vegas, which is the #1 destination for international visitors to the US, is seeing an 11% drop in visitors just in June, the steepest decline since the pandemic. Axios suggests this could be a sign of a broader decline in luxury consumption in the United States. When Vegas is devoid of tourists, does it signal an America entering a phase where the dream of enjoyment is no longer for everyone? What's concerning is that the Vegas scenario could spread. When the middle class, especially older people, are pushed to the margins of the dream, they not only lose a recreational destination, they lose faith that there is still a place for them in this society. Economic inequality is becoming increasingly apparent. Service costs, living expenses, transportation fees, etc. are all escalating, while incomes are insufficient to cover them. Vegas became a model for an America for those with money, a reality that many who experienced the country's period of prosperity found painful to admit. However, within those warnings, there is still an opportunity for change. Many experts suggest that national policies should support more affordable tourism, from reducing visa costs and supporting reasonably priced international flights to investing in community-based and sustainable tourism products. At the same time, reorienting economic development to ensure everyone has a place, instead of just chasing profits for a small group, is the only way to restore trust. Even major corporations like Delta Airlines have begun experimenting with flexible pricing and transparent costs, aiming to attract back middle-class travelers and retirees, a sign that change is possible with enough determination. If Vegas is just a warning, do we still have enough time to save America? And if it's too late, what are we really leaving for future generations besides glittering but hollow light? Las Vegas was once hailed as the city that never sleeps, a symbol of the dazzling American dream. But today, amidst the still bright neon lights, a harsh truth remains. The party is over, the costs are out of reach, and the very people who make up the city are the first losers. Vegas isn't just losing tourists, it's losing trust, losing the identity that once made it so appealing. This city may only be a slice of America, but within it, one glimpses an uncertain future. A future where the middle class fades, where the memory of an America for everyone remains only in nostalgia. And if Las Vegas, a symbol of glamour, can also collapse due to greed and repeated mistakes, then where is the safe haven for the American dream to continue? If even the brightest lights of the country are gradually fading, will America still have the strength to ignite hope for future generations? And can we, those who once witnessed a time of prosperity, still dare to believe that change can still come? If you have any memories of Vegas, or if you feel this story reflects where you live, please share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can continue to explore the truths behind the American dream. The content in this video is based on public data, media reports, and independent analyses. Some information may change over time or is still debated, so viewers should consider this as a reference perspective. The video is not intended to draw absolute conclusions or assign blame to any individual, organization, or government. All statements and images are for illustrative purposes only and serve analytical and exploratory purposes.